I challenge. I challenge you to a duel.
Oh, wait. That was a good shot there. I gotta give it to you, man. That was a pretty good one. Well, I guess it's my turn now, huh? So, here we go. You ready? Ooh, yeah. Welcome to the Iron Side.
Hello, everybody.
Greetings.
How's it going?
Moo!
Cowmander.
The Commando is here.
Cowmander.
Yes, guys, inspired by the ferocious cows of Zulu, I signed up this week, and they appreciate me so much, they made me a Cowmander of the Commando unit.
There you go.
I feel gypped there. My Cowman helmet should have been seems a little floppy, like maybe they misplaced things.
Yes, the berserker cows.
Real cowboys flop like this? I don't think so. But maybe it's because I'm not a pure cow or something. I don't know. But.
That might be it. Well, welcome, guys.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
The board is in the chat.
The Gourd King. So this is a pretty good movie. I've seen it not as many times as Matt has seen it, but I've seen it probably a good 5 times. I just watched it again this morning in preparation for the show.
Yeah, I said off the air, but I'll give. So when I was a kid, for all you young folks out there was a thing called syndicated TV, and around the holidays they had to fill the programming with something other than game shows or whatever. So they start with every year the same movies would come out on the same days, right? So like Thanksgiving was Godzilla and King Kong movies on Thursday and Friday, and then eventually like the second week of December, there was a day. It was like December 13th or whatever. That was probably right around Pearl Harbor Day is like December 7th, right? So
yeah,
it's probably right around there. Like that they would have March of the Wooden Soldiers, Sergeant York, and Pride of the Yankees in like a row. And as a little kid, I watched them and I fell in love with all 3 movies. And watched them every year like tradition. But I admit I don't watch Pride of the Yankees as much anymore, even though I still love it. It's really just March of the Wooden Soldiers and Sergeant York. I return to it every year, But it's such a great movie about such a great person,
Yeah. It's a good movie, and it was made right on the cusp of the Second World War too. So,
if I recall correctly, it came out shortly before Pearl Harbor, and was doing well, like it was acclaimed. But when Pearl Harbor happened, there was a lot of patriotism. So any movies like Sergeant York that went to theaters got a huge boost. If I'm remembering the timing of it correctly, there were a couple of movies that got the Pearl Harbor boost, unfortunately. But this was already a critically acclaimed movie beforehand. Like it eventually won an Oscar and all that sort of stuff. And it's based on his diary. It was with so he wrote it. There were a couple of different attempts to make his life story, I think, in either movie or book format, and he wasn't happy with any of them. So, but then eventually he befriended another soldier who was a writer, and now he gave that guy permission to take his diary and write a first-person version of it, which became his autobiography, basically, co-written autobiography, and they based this movie on that.
Yeah, so the movie released on July 2nd, 1941. So it was a few months before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, but back then movies ran for like a year. There was no
right. Yeah. Also, I think a lot of people kind of saw, because especially around this time, probably 6-8 months before, you had the Battle of Britain, and they were really struggling. Britain was. It looked like they might get invaded by the Germans. So you had a lot of people that could kind of see that, hey, war was coming, probably.
Including Sergeant York himself. He was a big advocate for getting in early before Hitler took too much territory. And He was very opposed to Hitler's, well, all of Hitler's ideology, including socialism and the racial stuff. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Now, here's the thing to kind of understand about the American involvement in World War One is the war started in August of 1914, and the Americans didn't actually join. Like, hey, we're going to go to war till April or so of 1917, but they didn't actually get over there till almost the very end because it took so long because our army was so small. We didn't have a expeditionary army that could go in.
Yeah.
Our Navy wasn't that big. So we had to build up. We had to draft people, recruit people, train them, get the weapons. I mean, when they trained, they trained with like wooden guns and fake machine guns. And
Well, even back then, I remember, talking to my relatives who talked to their relatives from that era, right? Like sometimes the soldiers had to bring their own weapons to training and stuff. It was such a weird. Oh, Walter Brennan, I mean, what a great actor. Um, the, the director.
Yeah.
There's so many places we can go. We talk about the making of the movie, talk about Sergeant York. There's such an amazing, a lot to talk about with this film. Like Howard Hawks, a great director, directed Rio Bravo, directed the original Thing from Another World adaptation. What else? What else? Gentleman for Blondes. I remember that much. A whole bunch of other movies. Like I said, Walter Brennan, another great actor. The woman who played Sergeant York's mother, if I'm trying to remember correctly, what was her name?
I know that she was in like stage plays. She was born in like the 1800s, like
Yeah.
1881 or something.
She's like a legendary actress whose career, didn't make a lot of movies, but our careers before they made movies. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, she did a lot of stage work.
Yeah, and she actually looks like Sergeant York's real mother.
Margaret Wycherley, Wycherly. She's English.
Well, yeah, that's that's a
born in
Welsh last
London.
name, Wycherley. I'm pretty sure that's Welsh.
Wow, she was kind of hot when she was young.
Yeah, she looks like is the mother.
Yeah.
Ward Bond was in this movie.
Yeah, she looks like pictures of ancestors of mine.
Yeah. June Lockhart played one of York's sisters. You know, the Lost in Space guys. June Lockhart.
Mhm.
She played one of the sisters. But then we've tried before. All these movies back then had great cast. Up until the year 2000, movies had multiple actors who were great in their cast. And after the year 2000, it was like one or two actors, and everyone else was scrubs.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that the new Shogun TV show has a bunch of good actors in it.
I'm sorry. I mean movies. TV
Movies,
shows,
right? Yeah. That old guy in the front, he looked familiar too. Like he's been in something. This guy here.
We probably have seen all these guys.
Yeah, in other movies.
Yeah.
Like the guy who played Pusher, he was on Bewitched. I remember him in that.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. George Tobias.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on Bewitched from 1964 to 1971.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of if you go down this list here. Oh, the kid, his younger brother was Dickie Moore. He's been in a lot of different movies.
Yeah.
As he was a kid actor at the time.
Yeah, the guy who played Buck, maybe he was in a lot of stuff too. I mean, all these actors, we've seen them in tons of stuff.
So yeah, he was a hellion in his younger days.
Oh, you said Dickie Moore.
Disrupted
Yeah,
the
one of Alvin's brothers. I think he had more siblings in real life than he had in the movie. You know, well, Mama York was a busy woman.
I don't know if that
No,
was the,
this hat is surprisingly warm, and I'm going to take it off because I'm starting to sweat. So I could use it as a winter hat. It's so warm. Oh God.
so in this scene in the movie here. Sorry, I've been looking at all the different people that starred in the movie. Um, so they're having their church meeting, and then Alvin and his two pals are running around drunk. So previous to him joining the army and whatever, he kind of was older, I guess, and then but he would drink a lot and kind of run around with
Well,
his friends.
he
And
was. Go ahead, sorry.
and here, but this is to show how good of a shot he is. While drunk, he was able to shoot his initials into this tree.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if
Yeah.
this seems a little far fetched to me, but because it was
Well,
nighttime and everything, but
I'm sure the movie embellished it a bit,
yeah,
but even among the people like beforehand, he was like when they did report interviews, he was getting a legendary shot for people in the mountains. You know.
hmm
So he was the oldest of the York kids who was still at home. The oldest, 3 or 4, I guess, had married and gotten their own farms by then. And when his dad died, he became like the man of the house, taking care of all the younger kids, working and stuff like that. And he worked. I mean, that this. I don't want to criticize this movie because I love it so much, but he would basically like work hard, live hard. You know what I mean? Like because yeah, he was a young man. He looks older. Gary Cooper looks older than the character actually was at the time. You know what I mean? And so he's a young man. I don't know
Yeah.
the exact age.
he was
Stepping
born
in,
in December 13th, 1887.
yeah. So he would
So
have
let's see,
been
97.
like early 20s. You know,
Right, he'd have been in the middle. Yeah, yeah, yep.
yeah. And so he had to step in as the man of the house when he really should have been making his own way, looking for his own wife and all that sort of stuff. And he took care. No one ever disputed. He took care of his family. He worked his butt off for them, and he just after that he would just go out and drink. You know, and they don't show it in the movie. One of his friends died drinking. That was one thing that led to his eventual conversion to being like a devout Christian and all that. Yeah. Yeah, but he's
This guy's selling
like,
selling bloomers.
Oh, right. This is an out of town salesman.
yeah.
The mail guy rides a mule to deliver the mail, and this dude's riding around in a car. It's like it shows like the huge divide between people that lived in this part of the country and people on the East Coast and West Coast. Because there are parts of Tennessee that didn't have electricity until the 30s.
The Appalachians are still pretty back.
Yeah.
Like not to go political, but you kind of have to. Whenever someone says there were no like poor European peoples in the country, the first thing you reply with is Appalachia. You know, like it's still like a
Yeah,
backwater. Like,
Appalachia.
yeah, you know, that headline there, German smash at Verdun. If you want to hear a great song, go to Sabaton, Verdun, Field of Verdun. Yeah. But anyway, it's
Yeah,
such
I
a
listened to the Sergeant York song.
yeah. Yeah. But and this was their
It's
you
just
know
like
like
they just totally look past, the headline. It's like it's Europe. Who cares?
Oh, it's
he's
because it's
probably
so
that
far
one.
away.
He's probably the one guy who could read too. You know,
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, yeah,
him and the minister basically.
Yeah.
yep. This is back when you could get away with not being able to read. You could still get a job and make a living.
Well, you had to work. You worked the family
Yeah.
field. You know?
Right.
I mean, that was a big change where, in the between the Dark Ages and early Middle Ages, where it became like your kids, you started to learn to read from the local priest, so to speak, and then the family started with Bible study, teaching their kids how to read the Bible, you know, and because that was the Protestantism, because the Bible is an understandable language for everyone now, and not that that's why the Protestants did that because they wanted it to be understandable, but it turned out to be a very useful teaching tool because it was a book everyone had. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it turned out to be a sideways. Oh, look, there she is.
So in this scene, they were bad mouthing Alvin. They were like, "He's a drunk. He's running around tearing stuff up."
Yeah.
And then she comes in, and this guy is trying to sell like this fancy hat. So she looks at it for a second, but the store owner, who's also the pastor of the church, is like, "Yeah, no one wears that kind of stuff around here." I mean, look at her; she's still wearing a bonnet from like the 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a great thing pastors used to do is sort of when they would get the excess from running the store and church donations, they'd balance out and help the community with the poor people and all that. You know.
Right? Yeah, because she only had 5 eggs to pay for
Yeah.
some bacon and salt, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the things. They had some really bad land, their family. Um, so like, I mean, I don't know. I don't remember the whole story here, but her, one of her father, which is I think where they got that land from. He was a Civil War deserter, so he had to be someplace out of the way, so to speak. Yeah, so they got some really bad, difficult to work land. And the movie here about the bottom land versus the highlands and all that, you know. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the way it was. I mean, before modern farming equipment could break anything, you know. Like now, if you had that land, the rough land, you'd come in there with like a mechanized tractor with the 4-inch blade till and just rip the whole ground up and flatten it out, you know. And now, but farming
Yeah.
we talked about this with offline, right? It was offline. We talked about the technology advances in the 20th century. Farming technology, I want to say post World War II, revolutionized like the amount of food people could produce, you know. And small scale farming like this, even for your own food, became very like for the like most of the food that these people produce is for themselves, and the small amount extra they get, like she probably has like like 40 or 50 eggs a day, but she has a huge family she has to feed. And eggs are going to be a reliable source of protein and as well, so maybe she has 7 or 8 extras she can trade away, you know. And so these families had to feed themselves with their own farm, but what, oh my god, I'm sorry, the throat's going crazy. What the hell is going on? I'm getting an allergy attack in the middle of Sergeant York. Something's wrong. I'm going to blank the camera for a second, guys, and cough it out.
That's okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's the mother from Lost in Space there.
Yeah. No, as a kid. Yep. So she's sending
I
him
like
to
this
go
too.
get
She's like, go get your brother.
him. He's bringing a gun
Yeah.
because this drinking establishment is literally on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky, and some things are legal in one state and not in another. So you have to cross the room in order to buy alcohol.
The root.
Yeah.
And then, you also have the county to county thing, too, you know? And this is just leading into prohibition. Like, it happened a couple of years after this. So, another weird, stupid thing the U.S. did. Man, that was a weird attack. Oh, my
Yeah.
God. Sorry, guys. Sorry for disrupting that way. Oof.
Oh, that's all right.
Well,
So
I think
there's the
Gordon-
county
Gordon
line.
King-
Right.
Gordon King had a comment when I think we're talking about farming. Nowadays, with modern tech, you can homestead yourself, but it's really possible because of modern tech with solar and propane tanks and things like that you can be off grid and raise your own food. And in a way that is not an economic loss. You know what I mean? Where your time would like you could argue your time would be better spent earning money and buying food. You know what I mean? But you can actually we've gone back to the point with tech where we can homestead again. You know. But back then, that's what they did for food. Even when I was a kid around in my old neighborhood, they like everyone's backyard was like a mini farm, you know. And then every basement had like cheeses and meats hanging to be preserved, but it was like out in Italy and all that. And it's just crazy the amount of food we used to produce on our own. We talked about this. What were we talking? What movie were we talking about? This like a year ago or something, Jacob, where the amount of stuff people used to produce on their own, and we all just stopped doing it in like the 1990s. You know, like
Right.
yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah. But look at look at the set work there. I mean, I know it looks dilapidated, but it takes a lot to make a good dilapidated set. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
the fact that it's in black and white though, kind of adds to it, I think.
yeah,
But yeah, these are his two drinking buddies, and they're deciding what they're going to toast to because they've are literally toasted to everything, and they're like, "Well, let's toast to against something." So we're going to toast against being sober, is what they said.
yeah. Is that Ward Bond?
Yeah, one the
Yeah.
kind of right there, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. So here comes his brother.
It's like, Mom told me to shoot you if you wouldn't come.
People are a lot more tolerant of people walking into places with weapons out than they are today.
Yeah.
Well, my understanding is
Yeah.
that outside of like certain Democrat-run cities, people still have guns all over the place. You know?
Yeah, but they usually just don't walk into a drinking establishment
Yeah.
like a kid brandishing it. You know, this was totally or running around on horses, shooting them in the air and stuff.
Plus, there's a safety issue back then. You could still be attacked by a bear or something walking around Appalachia. You know?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And this
And
guy
well,
wisecracking, your ma wants you,
if you think about it,
and it starts a fight.
it's not that far removed from the Wild West, like 10 years maybe.
No, huh?
If you went out to certain towns out, you know, there'd still be people getting in gunfights and stuff 10 years prior to this. So
Well, with the gangster explosion that happened in like the 30s and early 40s, there was a lot of gunfighting going on too. You know?
mhm.
I like this. The piano player, he's not playing the piano, but he slows the music down
Yeah.
to like slow the fight down. So it's funny.
So,
Beard
his
will be
buddies-
dropped in. Hey, Beard.
him and his buddies getting in fist fights. Says there in his bio that he had a propensity for getting drunk and fist fighting.
I wouldn't be surprised. Drunk and fist fighting.
Yeah.
You know, he worked hard. He lived hard. You know. She might be one like a short list of actors who look like the character they play in real life. She's like on that short list. You know.
So she throws some water on him to sober him up. Yeah. So apparently the house they live in is just one giant room.
You want to hear something
Yeah,
funny?
it's pretty common.
In the middle, like so,
Sure.
years and years ago, I was with my fraternity brothers, and it was this time of year, so I put Sergeant York on the big common room TV. You know, after watch the Wooden Soldiers, and one of my fraternity brothers was a
Taking
weeb, and the first time he sees Junior Lockhart, he goes, "Oh my God, it's like real life Sakura from Naruto." It's like the forehead, because he has like that big forehead look, you know. I spit out my beer. But I will say they all have better teeth than the real life characters would have at the time. For sure. But yeah, this is look at the land he's on, and like nowadays we would just flatten. Like we would just get the. I'm amazed by farm equipment. I watch
bulldozer,
Call the Corn Farm, Corn Farmer channel. Their tractors, like they're bigger than monster trucks. You know what I mean? And they drag equipment to like plow like 40-foot wide swathes. And like when they go into a brand new field, they can put these things that dig down and like crush rock as they drag it. You know, it's like they would just flatten the top of that ridge off. You know, it would be big flatland and with modern equipment. You know.
Yeah, and they can do multiple rows. He's just doing one row at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
you mention
Yep,
how
with his
long that would
mule.
take?
Yeah, it was all hard work, you know.
Yeah.
And he always has to. That rock is too big for him to get out of the ground, so he always has to plow
And
around it.
in real life and in the movie, most of his male younger siblings are too young to do a lot of the work, which is part of the burden he had to carry.
Hmm.
You know, like I think his older siblings were
Yeah.
all brothers. I don't know if it was 2, 3, or 4. And so, like, had his father lived, like died, like they could do the work, but in other words, Alvin is the oldest one who could still work the farm effectively as a man. Whereas the younger ones were like teenagers or whatever, and they could work the farm, not they didn't have the strength to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the pastor talking to him about his drinking and when is he going to find God? And he's like, well, I tried looking for God, but I couldn't find him. And he's like, well, maybe God will show up and find you in the most, strangest way or something. And he was like, yeah, I reckon that's how it's going to be. They said, I reckon, and I'm afeared quite a bit in this movie.
I reckon.
And Gary Cooper, this is already he's one of the few actors who authentically portrayed York. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He knows how this type of character. I don't know if you've ever seen Pride of the Yankees. Lou Gehrig was another type of human being like York, a humble person who's legitimately humble, and who actually cared, like what we call a legitimate, humble, God fearing man. Gary Cooper played those characters so well.
Hmm. Yeah, he made me really believe that he was a yokel.
Yeah.
So the bar,
Yeah. I wonder if that tree's still there.
just fighting the first battle of Prohibition at that tree.
1760. That's probably when his house was built. So now they're going hunting for some foxes for the pelts. They can sell the pelts for money.
Right.
Then he runs past this farm and he sees her. Now he knows her from before, but they haven't seen each other in a while. So she used to be smaller and younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's her her name is Gracie. That's an effect when you see someone like when you're like little kids, 5, 6 years old, boys and girls, like you don't know the difference, and then you don't see them like 10 years later, and one of them comes back as being amazingly beautiful, and you're like, it's such like it's like a cognitive dissonance the way you remember seeing them where they are now.
Right. And his younger brother's like,
the
what are we
younger
doing?
brother
Let's
doesn't
keep
get
going. Yeah. This is definitely back before Tinder. Her only prospects are some dudes in this village.
Yeah. And if he didn't have the drinking problem, he'd be considered a great prospect. He was like I say, he was a legitimately considered one of the hardest working men in the community.
Well, this sparks his desire to better himself because he wants to marry her. So but he doesn't have anything to offer. See, then this scene, he's asking his mother, "Hey, what did Pa have when you married him?" And she was like, "Well, he had this farm, and he had some mules, and he had $6." And he was like, "What did grandfather had?" And he had 2 sets of horses and this farm and something else. It was like a bunch of chickens or something. And so this is when he decides that he wants to get some bottom land.
Yeah.
And but because they're in a valley, so they're up on the mountain where the soil's not that good. It's harder to farm because the ground is not good, and it's on an angle and all this kind of stuff. And then if you're down in the bottom of the valley, that's the better land. You can grow a lot more crops on it. So he wants to buy bottom land so that he's worthy to marry the woman that he wants to
Yeah.
marry. So he has
So
something to offer her.
so while
Yeah.
his dad was alive, the older brothers could work on their own, help on the farm, work on their own to save up money to get their own land, right? So, but he can't do that because he has to be the man of the house now. All his work has to
Right.
go just for the land, And I think the way it usually would wind up with these type of families is the youngest kid who's with the one the left home the latest inherited that bit of land because they would take care of the parents as they get older. So
Right. Well, it seems like his older siblings went on to bigger and better things, which is what he wants to do. He wants to have a, better ground and do better than his
yeah.
parents. Um, and that makes his mother proud because,
Well, that's what you want. If you're a parent, you want your kid
yeah,
to do better than
right.
you.
So then he shows up to talk to her, but this other dude is there. And then her old uncle is just out there reading loud of the Bible to
With a
kind of,
gun, probably a gun we can't see sitting right next to him.
to accentuate this conversation. So
Yeah.
like any poignant point where what he reads in the Bible actually goes with what's going on as far as like this conflict here. So this guy is Zeb, and he has bottom land. He comes from a richer family that has more land, and he basically has more to offer her as far as prospects go. But York, he hasn't quite found God yet, so he'll be mad at him and stuff. And they're like, hey, don't fight, it's all good. And then she'll say, hey, do you want something to drink? And he's like, sure. So she'll go in to get some drinks. It's like water or something, or lemonade or something.
And she offers him a cider. Or
That's
something,
what it is. Yeah. And that's when, while she's inside, he like beats this dude up and makes him go away.
She gets upset. Did you fight with him? He gets him up, looks at the bottom land soil, and
Okay, so Gary Cooper was 40 when he made this film.
Yeah, I think who was it? Melvin. We had Gary Cooper died a couple Sergeant New York lived he was born 20 years before Cooper and lived 3 or 4 years longer than Cooper, despite being in worse health than him. It's kind of funny,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is where he's riding back and he gets some of that bottom soil and he's talking to his mother about it.
That'd be one way to do it. Every day, take a bucket full of bottom soil away from somebody's property. Where's all the soil going?
And she's like, that's bottom soil. And he's like, yep. So he tells her what he wants to do. He wants to get some. That's his plan.
And why bottom soil would also be better
Yeah,
because basically everything runs downhill. So all the
Right.
sediment, all the nutrients,
all the nutrients,
Right.
exactly.
all the organic gunk would run downhill.
Yeah.
The lava runs downhill because of lava enriched soils also,
Yeah, the soil would be a lot darker too because it's got more nutrients and stuff in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nowadays it wouldn't be long before the soil that's higher up look like the bottom land because it's run modern equipment there and get rid of all the big rocks. So then he starts saving up for a piece of bottom land, starts working.
That actor who's playing the old man there, what is his name? He's been in so much stuff. I can't remember. I just can't remember it.
What's that? The what?
Can you guys hear me clear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
I was saying the actor who played the old man who had the bottom land. I can't remember his name. But he's been in so much stuff. There's all these guys. We keep saying we're going to get all these actors. You know, it's like
Right. Well, you remember, like you were saying before, a lot of these actors were on like contract to the studio for multiple years. So here it is, August 1916. So the war had been going on for 2 years already by this point.
Yeah.
Well, not till the 14th of August, but pretty close.
Yeah, I think at this point, all we were doing was supplying them, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right, which caused the Lusitania to get torpedoed because they said, you know, hey, stop it. The Germans did, or we'll torpedo your ships. And we were like, F you. And they torpedoed the Lusitania. Even though the German embassy had put out flyers at the port saying, don't go on the ship, it could be torpedoed. But it got torpedoed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some speculation that it actually had some munitions on it secretly.
It probably did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. So he's working to get the money. She finds out about it and she runs up and says, hey, you know, basically giving him encouragement.
Yeah, this is not as well known. They kept it hushed, but near New York, some German guy blew up a powder magazine where they'd stored a bunch of ammunition and stuff.
Oh, was that I'm trying to remember what it was called, like the Black Tom incident or something. But yeah, it was in I think 1916 when that happened.
Well, a lot of that stuff was
closer to the 30 days.
You know, like so they didn't expect a lot of stuff like that to happen. That did, like you were saying, Jacob, and a lot of that led into the paranoia that eventually led to the Japanese internment.
July 30th, 1916. The term Black Tom originally referred to a New York harbor next to Liberty Island. It was artificially created. On July 30th, 1916, about 2 million pounds of small arms and artillery ammunition blew up. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So he comes in from working all these different jobs. He's splitting rails. He's removing rocks and stumps from people's yards. And now it's to the last day to get the money. And his brother's helping him. But he isn't going to be able to do it. So he doesn't really despair, give up
for more time.
Right. He goes to the guy and says, hey, I know I'm supposed to have it to you on Tuesday, but can I get you the money by Saturday? And this guy's, well, will you have the money by Saturday? And he's like, yes, I will, because I'm going to shoot at the turkey shoot and I'm going to win the bull. There's a prize bull. If he wins it, then he can sell it and then I'll have enough money. This guy doesn't believe he'll be able to do it. But he says, all right, I'll give you that amount of time. and they shake on it. Now it's the turkey shoot.
And they don't play it up in the movie, but that guy he breaks his deal basically. Those are spoilers, right? He would have lost a lot of standing in the community for doing that, breaking his word.
Well, he had it in writing that
Yeah.
it was still Tuesday. Now I don't know if that was like a real thing and happened in real life or not, but yeah, they shook
Well,
him.
again, I don't know. Again, I don't know the particular of it, but I know that the thing where in this type of community, you give your word, you have to keep it. There's no
right.
you know,
Yeah.
like he would have been called out in church. He would have been people would have done business with him.
Right. Because Alvin had already sold his mule, a bunch of chickens, some pelts, a clock, a bunch of other stuff to him for, what was it, $50?
Yeah, for basically a down payment, I guess.
Yeah, right. And then he had to come up with the other money. So he gets the turkey. Now, this is important. How he gets the turkey is people are trying to shoot the turkey, but its head keeps going down and they keep missing it. So what he does is he goes, and it makes its head come up and then he pops it. This will be important. This will be an important thing later in the movie. The fact that he does this. So then he uses the turkey to pay for one shot because he needs 5, and then it's $1 per shot after that. And you get all 5, and if you hit the bullseye for all 5 shots, you get the entire bull. If you get 3, then you get the meat. If you get 2, you get the hide. If you get or 6 shots, I mean, is it 5 or 6? I think it's 5. So 5. The 5th one is you get the whole bull. The 4th one is you get the meat. The 3rd one is you get the hide. The 2nd one is you get the tallow, like all the fat and hooves and stuff. And the last one is you don't have anything. Right. You got to pick all the bullets out of the tree.
Yeah.
So what they do is they have a plank of wood with this paper on it with a V cut in it. And you have to get down into the right where the V is. They call it cutting paper. And what's weird, and it does make sense though, is they change the board every time with the paper stapled to it. I guess that way you don't have multiple bullet holes in it and stuff. Where you have like one bullet on top of the other or something.
Yeah, no disputing or whatever.
Right.
Plus, the bullet will cause a ricochet and kill someone.
Yeah. And it looks like they're all using muzzle loaders, like black powder muzzle loader guns. Because that's percussion cap muzzle loader for sure.
And it was probably passed down too.
Right, but it's rifled and they're using bullets. It's not a ball. It's a
right. If you watched Sharp, like that was one of the big things in Sharp is the redcoats have basically muskets and Sharp's chosen men have rifles, muzzle loader rifles.
Right.
So they're all sharpshooters and elite men. And this is the same sort of transition there. Like the gun, I don't know if full bullet rifles, they probably were, but they'd be ultra expensive for these people. You know what I mean?
Right. Although it might have been a rule that they had to use black powder or muzzle loader for the competition. That could also have been a rule.
Well, you can make your own black powder, though. Yeah. People probably all know how to do it, but especially in the mountains, probably easy to do.
Yeah. So now they're checking to see who's closer with calipers, which is, it's pretty high tech. They're not just eyeballing it.
And the one man in the community who they all trust, the Reverend.
Right. And Alvin wins, so he gets the bull. And it was a big one too. I don't know if we saw it. There it is. Look how big that thing is. I mean, it's not like a longhorn or anything, but that's a big, that's a fully mature cow ready for slaughter. So now he's gonna go,
and then
now what he wants to do is he wants to get money from other people so that they can shoot again, and he have his own little competition to make money off the bull. And then he'll give the bull to whoever wins. So if he's charging $1 a shot and you got enough people doing it, he'll have enough money to pay for the bottom land.
Yeah.
But here comes the guy that he had to deal with for Saturday, and old Zeb is with him. The guy that was, hitting on his chick. And he's like, "Oh, well, I sold the land to Zeb because I didn't think you'd have the money." So he has the money here, and he's like, "Oh, my bad." And so now he gets mad, and obviously because they shook on it. And he's like, "Well, it wasn't in writing." So now they leave because they know he's mad. And they gotta, hey, let it go, man. He's like, "That land was mine."
There ain't no troubles are brewing.
Right. So he goes and gets drunk, and the whole time he's like, "That land was mine. I had the money. I worked hard for it." And this is going to be, the low point for him, where it was right in his grasp, marriage and happiness and a family and everything, and it's all gone. Yeah, you can see the intensity in his eyes.
And his buddies are like, well, he's gonna go kill that guy, and they just sit there.
Yeah.
They don't do anything.
Yeah, and they're
to
like,
try
"Well,
to
nothing we
stop
can
it
do.
or anything.
We tried our best. Let's drink some more."
I was saying before, the guy broke his word. One of the
Yeah,
worst things.
exactly. Yep.
So they will not feel. I mean, they know Al will probably get
Right.
arrested and killed for it, executed for it.
Yeah.
But he did something despicable. The guy, he broke his word.
Yeah.
And survive. This is a survival community. If you can't, your neighbors don't keep their word. Like, oh, hey, Bill, will you tell me if the barbarians come over the pasture? Sure, I will. Barbarians pay some money. Well, Bill didn't tell us the barbarians were coming. It's like that's why that sort of tradition evolves. That your neighbor, you stand together, or you die separate.
So he's riding home in the rain and a lightning storm, and it strikes a tree, and then somehow it hits him and the mule, and like knocks him off of there.
It hit his rifle.
Right, and he comes to.
He had his rifle sticking up, and it hit the rifle.
Okay, and his rifle's bent. I mean, look at that. Yeah, the whole thing is bent. And then he's down on the ground, and he wakes up, and his mule's knocked down too. I thought it was dead at first, but it's not. But it ain't doing too good.
So this is not a real thing. Like, this is embellished for the movie.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like when lightning, now the science, not that they knew this, they just did this for the movie, but when a lightning bolt hits, if you're within, let's say, depending on how much voltage there is, 10 meters of it, you're going to get fried. It's because all that it starts into the ground, and you're standing on the ground, you're getting fried. You know what I mean?
We had a lightning bolt strike a tree across the street from the building I used to work in. And it was like I don't know what kind of tree it was, but it had like flammable sap in it. So when it hit it, it like blew up like a bomb and just blew the trunk completely apart.
Yeah, I remember reading when I was a kid. I used to like to go out in thunderstorms. That wherever you're standing, as your hair starts to rise, just start running in a straight line as far as you could, because because within a couple seconds, there's a good chance a lightning's going to strike within a couple, like 5-10 meters of where you are.
So I don't know if you noticed it before, but the shoe off the mule was like smoking, like it blew the shoe off of the mule. So he's kind of coming back, and he hears them singing in here, so he comes inside, and I mean, it's got his mother and sister in there, so he should have known, I guess. But
back, they would have gone to church like every day back then.
Yeah, but anyway, so this is when he finds religion and kind of turns his life around as far as that goes.
Old time religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody is amazed because he's like, he's the local ruffian.
So I think this isn't like the next day or anything. Like time has passed. Maybe a couple weeks or something. And so he gets, cleaned up. But anyway, he goes to see this guy, and this guy thinks he's going to beat him up because he, screwed him over on the deal.
Well, the word probably spread from the bar. York's looking for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he actually came to apologize and said, "Look, I worked hard and everything, but you could do what you wanted because that was the deal. But I'd like to buy the mule I sold you back because the other mule got struck by lightning." And then this guy's like, "Well, I charged you 30. I gave you 30 for the mule. I'll sell it to you for 20." And he's like, "Oh, that's very kind of you."
He's got to get his face back in the community too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, like, like people who are like 20-year-old watching won't get. You know what I mean? Because that type of reality doesn't exist for them anymore. That the community bonds, like where you keep your word and you help your neighbor, are important. In cities and even suburbs, they're like no one does that anymore.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, there still are places in Appalachia that are close, but not to this extent.
Well, rurally, I'm sure there's still communities like this. Obviously, the Amish and all that too. But like, it was more of a reality, even among all poor people, because poor people in cities came from communities like this until you had multiple generations in cities, and then all these old customs like disappeared.
Right. Well, you had to rely on your neighbors a lot more. Now you can just order stuff online and have it delivered.
Yeah.
So then he goes to see Zeb, the guy that he got in a fight with. And this guy's got sugar cane is what it looks like, and they're making molasses or something.
Right.
Because they're crushing up the sugar cane and then and that's the guy's Zeb's father. He says he wants to talk to Zeb, and Zeb thinks he's coming to like beat him up.
Yep, that's how they used to crush sugar cane.
Yeah, Melvin's saying Hacksaw Ridge reminds me a bit of this. Right. It's kind of the same kind of through line.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up when we get to the war part of the movie. So, yeah, Desmond Dawes is kind of like a similar situation to Sergeant York. Mm-hmm. But I'll save it till we get to the part of the movie where we talk about that,
So he says, "Hey, you bought that land fair and square, but I would like to work on it for you for money." And this guy's like, "Well, what if we do a sharecropper thing? Like you work on it and then every, it'll kind of pay for it. Like you'll work it off, kind of like rent to own kind of thing. And so in like a couple of years, maybe 3 years, you'll own that piece." And he's like, "All right." So now he's happy. So he found God.
Yeah,
he's made amends with all the people that it didn't like.
Zeb even says that I just did it to spite you.
Right, because you beat me up. So then he goes and he sees the woman that he wants to marry, but he's contrite now because he knows he doesn't have anything to offer. So he's talking up Zeb. Like Zeb has good bottom land and he's a nice guy and he's got prospects and all this. And it makes her mad because she's already decided she wanted to marry him. So she's got like a knife and threatening him with it.
Yeah.
Sort of. She's just mad and she just doesn't realize she's waving it in front of her.
He's like, "The Lord sure works in mysterious ways."
Yeah. So now he's teaching Sunday school. So who knows how much time has passed now?
Well, if I recall correctly, Um, between his conversion and because he signed up for the draft. The reason I remember is because my birthday is June 5th, on like June 5th of 1917. Okay, so his conversion, there was like 3 or 4 years between his conversion and the draft. That much I remember in real life. I don't know about the
Yeah.
movie, but in real life,
Oh, right. Well, in the movie, it was August when he was trying to work towards the land.
yeah,
So between August and 1 year and June the next, when war is declared.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think the movie compressed the time frame a
it
little
did.
bit.
It did. I think it did. So this is the mailman riding a
Yeah.
mule. He runs up and says, "War's been declared, and there's going to be a draft and all this kind of stuff. Millions to register for the draft." And imagine if something like that happened today. Oh my God.
I mean, we're older than it, but
Oh,
if they were like, "Yep, it's a
talk about
draft."
riots.
Everybody over, yeah, I know.
Talk about peaceful riots.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate
Mostly
to say
peaceful.
this, but if I had my mentality now and I were 18, I wouldn't be willing to fight given all the wars we have right now. I just I just couldn't. You know what I mean? If we were attacked, it's one thing, but kids nowadays, I mean, I'm sure they would say no because they're stupid, but like, they don't think about the moral consequences of the excessive amount of wars we have. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how long you were in Shieldwall, but
Yeah.
you probably fought in some of these stupid places we shouldn't be fighting in. You know what I mean? And I'm thankful that you were willing to do that, but like, I can't imagine just doing that. Like, being a young guy and being told I have to go fight in a country where you really shouldn't be to begin with. I couldn't, you know. There's no like there wasn't a lot of moral ambiguity of World War I or World War II or Korea. You know what I mean? Like you know who the bad guys were, and like nowadays
Right.
it's like we're going into these wars not to fight bad guys, but to you know just fight. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to imagine, your average like TikToker or something getting drafted.
I think that's why they want drones and AI now because
Yeah.
they know there's a whole generation of people who not only wouldn't fight but couldn't fight. Yeah, Melvin, it sucks over there.
Yeah. So in this scene, he's saying, "Hey, I don't want to sign up for the draft because I'm, with the good book now, and it's saying don't kill." And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, you can get an exemption as a conscientious objector for certain religious groups, like the Amish and people like
Okay,
that." Or
so
yeah,
this is the movie is done in a time which had different set of laws than they did. So in reality, there was no conscientious objector law in World War One. But they knew about this issue because they had a lot of religious people in the U.S. So what they would do is they would take guys like York
Yep.
and assign him a trainer role, or let him work in logistics, or keep him stateside. You know what I mean? So the one who what didn't have the objection could go to the war. You know what I mean?
right, right.
Like
Well,
like he would be given a
Right.
non-combat role, which
well, that
the majority of the military is not combat. For those who don't know that, it's like you need a lot of logistics and people transporting stuff, and you know what I mean, like people, uh, and so that's what would have been done. Now in real life, York did not so he did not want to be. He wanted to serve, but he didn't want to have to kill people, right? And that's why he brought up Desmond Doss, the
right,
Hacksaw
yeah,
Ridge.
Desmond Doss,
Yeah,
yeah,
he wanted the same thing, right? The movie has him as if he didn't want to be in the military at all, right? But in reality, like it was that he wanted to serve but not kill people, you know.
hmm
And so
Right.
that's how the law was. The law wasn't set for them to just like you know what I mean? Like so this is written when there is this movie was made when there was a conscientious objector law. You know what I mean? Whereas back then there
Yeah.
wasn't. That's kind of like the movie confuses the issue. But York in real life, he was very emphatic. I did want to serve. I was not a conscientious objector in that sense. I just didn't want to kill people. You know. And he
Right.
said, and he was troubled with killing people. The movie has it like he has an instant clarification, like give on to Caesar, what right? I'm not Chris. I love the movie. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes you got to look what reality is. He was troubled with the killing of the Germans for the entirety of the war, and he only really like he learned to live with it when he finally saw his fellow soldiers getting killed. He was still troubled by having to do it, but he was able to do it more efficiently. I'm trying to remember how he phrases. There's a lot of interviews with him over the years, when he was alive, and he didn't give a lot, but when he did, they were longer. You know what I mean? Uh, so like even I remember reading something once. It's a long time ago. Don't quote me on it, but I remember I was in my 20s that when he was in his what he got the Medal of Honor for, basically that the famous charge, right? Um, he was constantly saying for the German soldiers to surrender. I don't want to kill you guys. I don't want to kill you all. You know what I mean? And so it'll really. Like, in a way, it's like the ideal type of soldier, the one who's willing to do the violence but don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in these scenes here, he told them, "Hey, I'll just write a bunch of letters to the army board, and they'll get you excused. So you got to sign up for the draft because it's law, but then you do the conscientious objector thing, and it'll they'll give you a pass." Well, the previous scene with the guy near the window there, he's the Tennessee board guy telling him, "Nah, you got to go." So they're taking it all the way to Washington, and this is the scene where they've come back and told him, "Nope, you got to go join the army." So he's kind of forced into it now. And he's like,
it
well,
has to be a specific criteria, and one of them is that it has to be a recognized church.
And his little church isn't one of the ones that are recognized as traditionally being a pacifist. Right. So he has to go, at least in the movie anyway.
So I just hit up the Wikipedia, and his letter, his claim of appeal by person certified to district board, is actually online. You can read it. And Alvin, obviously it's a generic form, right? So Alvin Cullum York from Pall Mall, Tennessee, I hereby claim an appeal to the district board for the Middle District of Tennessee, blah, 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 because you deny my claim for discharge, which is based on the ground that I'm a member of a well-organized religious sect organization existing May 18th, 1917, whose then existing creed or principle for its members to participate in war, etc. So you can actually read his appeal. The military are famous for saving every document ever.
Yeah.
So this is him packing his bag, and him and his brother are gonna ride the mule down to some town so he can catch the train or whatever. And then obviously his bride to be came to say goodbye to him. My thought on this whole thing is he's gonna hold that bag the whole trip. Like, tie that off on something, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably has the grip strength of a god, given his work.
So he goes to Camp Gordon, Georgia.
Yes.
Georgia, on my mind.
It's the same.
So, did you do any ditch digging
near where the 101st was too?
No. Those days are
no.
Now, my grandpa did ditch digging in World War II, and my uncles and cousins did it in Vietnam. So it must have been after that they stopped.
Well, in basic training, we didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, you might have to, but these are Army guys, so they're you got to dig fortifications and stuff.
Well, what it seems to me is this was their way of physical training before they invented weights and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. You just put them to work digging something.
Yeah,
and,
that's pusher.
Yeah. So by this point,
I like how
Alvin is a
York
he's a
is
model
looking at him
soldier.
like, what accent is that?
He's a model soldier. He's a hard worker. He's doesn't get in any trouble, doesn't start anything. And then this captain comes and says, "Sergeant, where's York?" And he's like, "Over there." He's like, "Yeah, he's a conscientious objector, so keep an eye on him and give me a weekly report." So these guys kind of changed their opinion about him because of that.
Yeah.
So then they go back here, and this is where he's talking to his two friends, the guy in the middle there, Pusher. They call him Pusher because he's a subway attendant that pushes people into the cars. And he tells about his story about it right here. But Alvin doesn't know what a subway is. He's never heard of one or never seen one. So he's trying to explain it to him. It's like it's a big hole in the ground. And you put trains in it.
So this scene is significant, and in real life, as a result of being around Pusher and guys like that, and learning about the big city stuff, one of his driving goals was to get modern roads put through Appalachia, modern access, education for kids, and take care of orphans. And so when the father dies, the family didn't have to go where his family went through. So, like that was one of it for the rest of his life. He was on sort of like he would petition the state, he'd have organizations and all that try to get those modern roadway conveniences and stuff into Appalachia.
So then when they're getting issued their weapons, and of course the sergeant is keeping an eye on him to see if he doesn't want to touch the gun or whatever. Now in Desmond Doss's case, he did not want to touch the guns, but Alvin, he's grown up around guns. He shoots to hunt. So this is like a cool thing for him. He's like, wow, if I had one of these back home, I could have, done all kinds of amazing things. And this is a 1903 Springfield bolt action rifle, 5-round magazine. Yep.
Yeah. So Hacksaw Ridge, I don't want to slam the movie. It's not as good a movie as this is. You know what I mean? But I remember Desmond Doss' religion wasn't just like it was really anti-violence. What was it, Desmond?
Yeah,
he was
they were
a
Quakers, I
Quaker.
think, weren't they?
Yeah, Quaker, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was a vegetarian too. So it was like
Yeah.
not killing any animal, any creature.
Yeah. Whereas York was against like thou shalt not commit murder. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, he killed, defend himself. You know what I mean? He had no problem with that. But
Right.
Which I think is why he was willing to serve, knowing that his nonviolent service will enable others to kill. But he wasn't. Whereas you know what I mean? It's a complicated issue,
Right.
like, in terms of not the real life, like our just in terms of just the real life character.
This guy, it's like, there's grease.
He's
all
like,
in your
I
gun,
cleaned
it's
it.
all in your
Yeah. So
barrel."
there's the guns come greased, right, for preservation. So he's like, hey, do you got a clean one? He's like, you'd clean it up. So he cleans the outside perfectly, and then he opens it up, and he didn't do anything to the receiver or the barrel.
Yeah.
So he's like, can you see anything down here? He's like, nope. And he's like, it's full of grease. And he's like, well, won't that make the bullets go faster?
No, that'll make your gun blow up.
Yeah. Although, I mean, it kind of some kind of weird logic. And they ask him about his, you did real good cleaning it. You ever clean a gun before? He's like, oh, sure. I clean my own gun back home all the time. And they're surprised that he knows about guns. He's good with guns. He just doesn't want to kill, is the thing. But they're
Right.
thinking he's like a Desmond Doss kind of guy that doesn't want to touch guns and want anything to do with them. And here's the range. I think the fact they had those kind of telephones might be a little bit anachronistic for 1916 or
There might just be
1917.
wired radios though. With
Yeah.
ham receiver.
No. Those are what I mean is they're wired. It's a telephone, but I don't know. Maybe they had them.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying you're calling it. I don't know. Well, they did have the phone back then, though.
They did.
But I don't know
So-
if they would have had it. I mean, like it would have just been like it might have been a phone receiver with a dedicated wire. Like there's no switch.
Yeah. It's just wired to this box up here. A guy behind a table
Yeah.
there. So this guy's practicing the little dry fire. He tells him to hold his breath, and then he gives him all these instructions, and then he lets it out. He's like, I can't hold my breath that long. He's like, well, you're supposed to do all this quicker.
I like that he's
They got
sticking his thumb up too.
Yeah.
It's like
They got their campaign hats
shoots the
on.
gun and it pokes himself in the eye.
So that was like a practice thing.
Pokes himself in the eye.
One thing, well, at least in the Air Force, when you do your qualification for your rifle, they don't spend this much time talking to you individually. We're just like, here you go. You do a lot of classroom stuff first, and then, but if you have like a problem, they don't spend more than like a minute with you. They just can't because there's so many. There's too few of them.
Back
Now,
then, a lot of guys would know how to use guns, you know,
right,
Yeah.
right.
especially if they're, you know, grew up in the country.
And they're spending time with him because he's a conscientious objector, so they want to see what he's going to do. And so he shoots, and they say that he misses.
Yeah, they overlook the
Right. And he asks for a recount.
hit.
And they're
So,
like, oh, there it is. So when you miss, they wave a red flag, and that's called Maggie's drawers. Why? I don't know. That's just what they
But
call
funny
it.
enough, even when you see he thinks under his standards he missed.
Right, exactly. He's like, oh, I don't, how did I
Yeah, I
get?
did miss. You were right. It's like,
Yeah. He's like, I don't understand.
and I love how he's all excited. Oh, I've never had a gun that I put 5 rounds in.
Yeah, he was like, well, here, you have 5 chances to show him. He's like, okay. So he loads up 5. And then he just bullseye after bullseye. Also, he always licks his thumb and then wets the end of his sight. And he says it's to cut down on the haze. And so they bring it back.
So yeah,
And now he's talking about, yeah, he has all the right in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, why in real life they didn't just say, okay, make him a training officer, teach the other idiots how to shoot a gun? You know, like because they did
Right.
fight him on this for a while. You know what his role in the war in real life.
So now he's talking about how to kill a bunch of turkeys that are flying in a line or walking in a line or something, or geese maybe. And he said, you shoot the one in the back because if you shoot one in the front and the other ones see it fall, they'll scatter. So you shoot the one in the back and you just keep working your way forward and get as many as you can.
Yeah.
And this guy comes in and says, the colonel wants to see you.
And they just go over why he didn't want to fight or something.
Right. They're talking about why he doesn't want to fight. He's like, I don't want to kill nobody. And then they get into like a biblical argument here or conversation about,
Yeah.
Different passages from the Bible back and forth. So he gives them the book, the Birth of a Nation, I think, or History of America, something like that. Yeah. And he's like, oh, look, there's Daniel Boone.
Daniel Boone.
And he asks him, why do you think Daniel Boone went into the wilderness? Was he looking for land or whatever? And he said, I think he was looking for freedom to do whatever he wanted.
He's like, well, I sure have a lot of thinking to do. And the guy, he says he wishes he could get back up in the hills where he could do some thinking. So they give him a 10-day furlough. I think that's a real tree. I think. I don't know if it's still there.
Oh, nowadays probably not. Some asshole probably cut it. Excuse me, somebody
Yeah,
probably cut
probably
it
not.
down.
Well, it's probably dead by now. I mean,
Yeah.
No. I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah,
probably
rotten.
dead, but
I'm going to use the Google. I'm going to type Daniel Boone tree.
Okay.
I wouldn't be like he's a colonizer.
I think if someone tried that in Appalachia even today, they would get killed.
No. So it goes up to his little favorite
What?
spot here that overlooks the whole valley. His sister has perpetual sad face this whole movie.
Yeah. With his trusty hound dog.
Yep. So he spends all day up there thinking.
Okay, so there's this is apparently a popular thing to do in the boonies, so to speak, to carve Dan D Boone or Dan O'Boone killed a bar, and then the year he did it. Like there's one in Kentucky that was said that in like 1803. It's like Appalachia graffiti, you know. Another
All
one said
right.
he did it in like
Yeah.
1760. You know, it's like he says Dan D Boone killed a bar carving that had been found throughout the frontier that Boone traversed. And then they go,
So
Daniel
he
Boone may indeed have
stumbles.
killed all these bears and carved all those trees, or the forest might just be riddled with forgeries.
Yeah, so he's thinking
he kind of stumbles across this in the Bible. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God's the things that are God's. Meaning, your government does things that you have to, pay your taxes, that kind of thing, or serve in the military, which is, Caesar, and the things that are God to God. So,
And the movie
has a little
the
bit of
movie
a
doesn't play it up as much, but the reason he listened to that commander, captain, I think it was a captain or a colonel, that guy was also a devout Christian, and they had a longer conversation about religious stuff, that made him think.
Yeah.
So he comes back to that he will stay in the military or try to, and they send him overseas to France, the All-American Division, and then he sends a letter home saying I went to Notre Dame, and you could grow so big inside you could run a whole field of corn in there, but now they're moving out to the front, say hi to everybody and whatever.
He's like, tell Gracie, if she's worrying, don't. Don't do it.
And now they're at the front. And apparently they sprinkled them in with some British guys because they've had lots of experience to kind of teach them the ropes a little bit. So by this point, the war has been going on for 4 years. So the Germans, the Italians, the French, and the British have been and the Austro-Hungarians have just been slugging it out. The Russians too, till 1917. And so now these guys are talking about incoming artillery rounds and how you get a feel for them, like if you need to duck or not duck, and it's the one that you don't hear that gets you. And they're happy the Americans are there because they have a bunch of fresh cigarettes.
Yeah. So the first battle he fought in, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like it's a French saint name. I don't remember. It's where the U.S. first started to use terms like D-Day and 0 hour and stuff like that. That terminology went into U.S. military warfare jargon.
So his first battle was the Battle of Saint Mihiel. which was a major World War I battle fought between 12 to 15 September 1918. Now, keep in mind that the conflict was over November 11th. So most Americans didn't get into this thing till way late in the game. Which was reason that it could have been a deciding factor is because they were fresh, they were motivated, they hadn't seen, almost 4 years of horror of the trenches. They were new and got there and they were ready to go.
Yep. So now they just showed the battle name he just showed, the offensive. That's like the last major battle of World War One. So there was a big time skip between that first battle that Shieldwall named and that, like, not a big one, like a couple months or whatever.
It actually, okay, so the Battle of St. Mihiel was 12th through 15th September of 1918, and then the Meuse-Argonne offensive was 26th September.
It's only September. I thought it was like 2 months later or something.
No, 2 months later it would have been November already.
Yeah.
So it was fought from 26th September until the armistice. So they just kept fighting it for a total of 47 days. So he was in that, and this is where he took all his prisoners and all that stuff. Notice how they have the candle? It's in like a beef tin, a used beef tin.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'd make it a little reflector too out of part of the can.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it kind of had more light with it.
Well, these food tins were so pervasive.
Now how many
Like
how many people nowadays would think to do that,
I think if you're put in the right position, most people can kind of come up with stuff.
No, I remember reading that. Like these tins became so pervasive that the idea of using them for anything, like ashtrays, drinking cups, food dishes, candle holders, like it became like we got 50 more of those things. Let's figure some stuff out. You know what I mean? Like
it's mind-boggling the amount of trash that an army will produce.
Yeah,
it's crazy the amount of just anything. Artillery shell casings, trash, leftover food stuff. And I guess you get in that mindset, you just Oh, this is so wristwatches were not not really a thing before World War One, but because you had to constantly check the time and be able to look at it easily, it was more expedient to have a wristwatch than a pocket watch. Mm-hmm. You'd be fumbling around for the pocket watch. Also, the synchronizer watches thing comes from this for synchronizing artillery with troops going over the top out of the trenches to coordinate everything, which also is why the military is very strict on being on time, is because of this.
We get killed. Yeah.
Right. If you're not on time, that's why. But it's drilling you got to be on time for work, for your appointments, for everything.
Training for being on time for everything.
Right.
And the artillery was late, so they had to go over the top without any artillery.
Right. No preparatory artillery barrage. Right. It's supposed to be a rolling walking barrage where it goes in front of them. That was also something that was invented in World War One, but not till later. But it's hard to coordinate because you can mess it up real easy and kill your own people.
Yeah.
And we're approaching the famous scenes, so to speak.
Right. Now, these guys are on this hill. So the reason they have to take this hill is so they can penetrate into a rail yard and cut off the German supplies.
Right.
And you're charging across relatively open ground against machine guns. I think by this part of the war, most armies realized that was not the way to go. But because at the start of the war in 1914, there's this action that was at a river crossing, where the Germans were marching in formation, and one guy with a machine gun like would murder like 200 people
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
because it would go through the whole formation and pierce multiple bodies and stuff.
Yeah, and there was no armor, so no bulletproof vests or
Well,
anything
they
like that.
tried to invent all that kind of stuff. Like the
Yeah,
Italians were really
they
into that.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was it worked, but it really wasn't worth it because you were too slow. Okay, see these guys. Did you add these 1911 Colts to the to the? Did you add this?
No, no.
No, no, you didn't. Okay, this is
This
actually
is
in the movie.
actually from the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And these two guys are like they're the two head guys of this
Right. One's an officer
platoon
and the
or
other one's an
something.
NCO. Yeah. The guy on the left, I think, is a sergeant, if I remember right. So they're pinned down and they're taking heavy casualties. So they want them to move around. So he's like, "Come on, let's go. We're gonna flank them."
Now this scene here, you can really see how a submachine gun would come in handy
Exactly right,
in
like a
such tight
Browning submachine
quarters
gun,
and
which is
stuff.
why it was invented. The Germans actually had a submachine gun from, I believe, 1916 onward. That they made the assault troops or the storm trooping, um, and they were like their heavy infiltration infantry, and so they used submachine guns, lots of hand grenades, um, and like all kinds of weird trench stuff, like baseball bats or clubs wrapped with like nails driven into them, with the heads clipped off, wrapped with wire. The Americans like to use a knuckle
Shovels.
duster knife. Yeah. Well, yeah, entrenching
Yeah.
tools with one side
They also had
sharpened.
shovels too.
Yeah, but they also had a knife that had brass knuckles built into it, so you could punch people and
Yeah.
Yeah.
knock
An,
them
inter-
out and stuff.
an interesting thing about the depiction of World War One here is they did clean it up quite a bit. Like if you
Mm.
read Tolkien's recollections of the war, there were craters full of bodies everywhere. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
the stench. Yep,
Yeah.
out there. Another thing they had
I
was they
mean,
had
people would get the artillery shells were so big that people wouldn't get killed by the explosion. They would just get buried alive because it moved so much earth
yeah,
right,
that it
right.
just buried people.
Yeah, yeah. They had all kinds of because a lot of the trench weapons, because you had a bolt action rifle or something, right? It would devolve into hand-to-hand combat, bayonets and close quarter stuff. And you're in a trench line like this, you really can't wield your rifle around even with a bayonet on it. So you had to have these like short,
Yeah.
close in kind of things, and it started getting real medieval.
yeah.
Like,
Well, we talked about it's like
Yeah.
they no longer had the personal ability. Like in medieval times, bayonets would have been useless against even armor that peasants would have had, right?
mm,
But because they wear armor anymore, knives and bayonets and all mattered. You know what I mean? It's like
right,
the now if you try to
Yeah.
bayonet against the amount of gear that a soldier wear, you've been hit that one spot. You know what I mean? Or it could just gonna just all that Kevlar and crap they have on now, it
mm.
ain't gonna penetrate. It's like it's like they constantly. It's like a circle game. Like weapons go out of style because the armor or technique stops it. Then 10 years later, a new version of weapon comes back in because you don't go wear the gear to stop your weapon. It's like
So they managed to get around behind him, and they capture this whole back area guy. These guys weren't like really in the fight; they were just kind of resting or doing whatever. Maybe they were carrying water and stuff. And but the guy up on the hill on the machine gun nest, he's rearming, and he looks down and sees him. So they're going to turn the machine gun around.
Yeah. The old Maxim, right?
Yeah, it's a Maxim machine gun.
Water cooled. So yeah, it injures all the higher up guys. So to where it's just like 8 men, and Sergeant York is in command of them.
Right. Now the other guys can't really do anything because there's so many prisoners they have to control. I mean, while they're all being shot at,
Yeah.
all of them are keeping their head down. But
And I think I remember reading in real life that the Germans actually killed some of their own dudes doing with this attack too. So
shooting down in there?
yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't see how you couldn't. If you're shooting a full machine gun in there, you're just spraying, really.
well, there were multiple guns shooting down at them. There wasn't just
Mhm.
one in real life.
Right.
I think when he goes up on the ridge, you see more than one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they turn the other gun around.
Yeah.
They do start doing that. But he's trying to work his way around, and he's got so he goes from tree to tree, where he's able to like shoot these guys because they're no longer really protected from the angle he gets.
Yeah, I like how it dawns on him. He's doing this to save lives.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got to
that
stop
was
the machine
his
guns or he's going to murder all of his
mindset.
friends. Right.
Yeah.
And this is where he does the turkey call thing. They're shooting. He can't really see the tops of their heads. And now he's going to do the gobble gobble thing, and they'll pop up, and he'll pop them both.
I don't know if they show it, but in real life, the officer who ordered the surrender emptied his handgun at York and couldn't hit him. And at that point, because they thought a lot more Germans up there, and that's when he ordered the surrender because he didn't think he thought like I don't want to say he thought God was on his side, but he thought that York wasn't going to go down.
Well, here's the other thing. Okay, in my opinion, why these guys surrender so easily is because they know the war is not going well for them. They're exhausted mentally, physically, materially. A lot of them are conscripts and just don't want to be there anymore. And now you're getting flanked from the side, and you really don't know how many people are really shooting at you, right? You just know that a whole bunch of guys are dying. And
Yeah.
he's good with the gun, but I mean, at that range, pretty much anybody would be able to look at you. You can't miss. You just shoot down in
yeah.
there.
Well, again, this
Shooting
is again
fish
a
in a
movie
barrel.
simplifying it for real life. Where
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the real life description of it was he had like a higher ground, a bunch of nests, and the only people who had a clear shot at him, like that officer, none of his bullets hit York. And then they said that the officer realized York had the ability to shoot everyone, and it was the
Right.
toughest anyone to get.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's kind of the same instance
Like
here.
they weren't all in a line in real life.
Right,
There was
right,
like
right.
clusters of them, and New York
Okay.
was higher up or something like that.
Right. But anyway, he gets them to surrender, and they all come down. It's a lot of people, too. But again, like I said, I personally think that a lot of them were exhausted and were just like, man, I just want this to
Oh, sure.
be over.
Well, I mean, they surrendered because the officer said to surrender, not because they all said, "Oh, let's just surrender." I mean, they were just like saying they're going to kill us if they come up the hill, and we got to keep shooting, and that's all they were thinking about. You know what I mean? They weren't like that officer probably saved a lot of lives, even if ultimately could have got York with a lot of fire. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He could have killed 20, 30 more guys.
Yeah.
At least. And
So
and
he-
that's I mean I remember I know I told Jacob this story before, but in World War II, my grandfather, like I said, he was the only one in his company who survived the entire from when he went on the beach to when he got hit with artillery at Remagen. Only survived the entire World War II. So at one point they give him some replacements, and he gets a new lieutenant and all that. And the moron lieutenant makes makes the groups that were the unit, the platoon, I guess, march down the middle of the road instead of splitting two in the ditches and in the forest on each side of the road where they can get cover. And they got hit by a German machine gun. And that was the one time my grandfather said if the officer had lived, we were going to kill him. But like you want an officer when you're like an enlisted grunt guy like those guys are, who's not going to let you just get murdered for no reason, you know, who
No.
can surrender at the right time or whatever, you know.
So one of the prisoners throws a grenade
So
and
they're
it kills Pusher.
pusher.
Yeah.
He's like,
Who did it? And this guy runs away.
guy
so they
runs and he
shoot
just shoots him.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, anybody else try something like that, you tell them they'll be real sorry. And also he makes them take off their ammo belts and stuff.
If I recall correctly, even on the term to surrender, like doing what he did after the surrender is an executable offense, even in a courtroom. You know, like once you surrender, you're not supposed to do that because you get everyone killed.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right.
So even if York had just taken him aside and put him in cuffs or whatever, at a tribunal, they would have executed him for violating terms of surrender.
Okay,
So he says, if I was going to
where do we go from here? It's like
right.
that way.
And he's like, well, we're going the opposite direction.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
And then they get a whole bunch of other people to surrender. It's like 125 men or something.
130
finally
something.
surrender. I think that's right. Yeah, 130. Okay.
At this point, they probably want to surrender.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, we got some prisoners to drop off. Yeah, it's okay. Then he turns around. It's like, it's a whole mess of them. We don't
How
have
many
enough
did you
room for
count?
that.
Usually it's like 135, something like that.
Yeah.
And it just goes through a bunch of people saying, oh, this guy, made a bunch of Germans surrender. And each time it's like, oh, he made the entire German army surrender. And the generals and the Kaiser.
Got the Kaiser. York got the Kaiser. That's like, what was that? Didn't he kill 7 with one blow? Remember the Disney? Mickey Mouse kills 7 flies with one blow. It just spreads that he killed 7 giants with one blow.
Yeah.
So now he's explaining what happened to the general and colonel and stuff.
Okay, so this is again truncating. So what he got was initially was like the Silver Star or something like that, a regular sort, not a regular, but a War for Valor. And as word of it spread through the command, like you don't just get the Medal of Honor. There's a full investigation or whatever before it goes to Congress and all that.
Oh yeah.
So this is now post-war. It's probably already in the Signal Corps because that's where he finished his service in the Signal Corps. A full investigation of the battlefield, what goes on. Well, then up the chain of command. Every time it goes up, another like a higher ranking officer can't do the whole thing with him again. So before it gets up the chain of command to where eventually it gets authorized.
So they're asking him, like, what did you do? And I was behind this log, and I went to this one, and I went up here, and I shot these guys, and then I got them all in a line and made them surrender. And they were like, well, why'd you do it? And he said, I didn't want to kill anybody, but they were killing the people down here. So I killed them to make them stop. So basically I did it to save lives. And they were like, huh. So you killed people to save lives.
He probably had that similar conversation with like 7 different, like the captain, the colonel, the what's next? Major General, Assistant General.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Well, it goes all the way to Pershing because he's the one who gives them the
yeah,
Congressional Medal of Honor.
yeah.
Oh, he gets the Distinguished Service Cross. That's what he gets.
Yeah, Stark says but that's before this.
Right.
This is just them truncating the months afterwards, and he also gets the equivalent award from like multiple.
Yeah, the Croix de Guerre, I think, is what it's called.
And he got 4 different nations. I know Britain gave him something, France, and I think another country gave him something.
And he gets the Medal of Honor and the Croix de Guerre 1914, 1918 with Palm.
So there's the British, I think. Or no, that's American too.
Right. Yeah, that's where he gets the Croix de Guerre, then he gets the Distinguished Service Cross, and then this is where he gets the Congressional Medal of Honor.
I mean, that's quite the thing too. One guy made 135 people surrender.
He was, I think, one of the 2 or 3 most highly decorated soldiers of World War One. And granted, some of that, I'm not taking anything away from him, but some of that's the propaganda of, because after he did that, they used him to sort of, prop the military effort and the government effort up, which he was right. He was along with to a point, that he believed in the service and all that sort of stuff. But World War II is where he became more political. Now, for those who don't get this, the Tennessee Society is the Tennessee Society of New York that did this for him. In other words, there are different branches of it. And when he was on tour for the Medal of Honor, what happened is no one took note of it for a while, but then a big newspaper wrote it up, and then it spread like wildfire, became a national hero. So then he went on the tour, and when he was in New York, the Tennessee Society of New York is the one who set in motion a lot of the awards he did accept. He refused all sorts of endorsements and all sorts of other stuff, but he's willing to take some stuff from the Tennessee Society. Like that's how he gets the Bottomland, for example.
Right. And they get his family on the phone.
Given that his life was amazing even after this movie ends, like the part of his life after World War One, I'm surprised they didn't make a sequel. Like, or I know you can't make a 6-hour movie or whatever. You know what I mean? Well, you can, but like, we need Oliver Stone or someone to do that. It's like, but he was an amazing guy after the war too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he does all like this whirlwind tour, goes and sees Congress and all these special events and stuff for him. And then this guy talks about all these business deals that people want him to like endorse cereal and speaking engagements,
Millions of dollars worth.
Right. Well, in today's money, it was like $250,000 back then, which was like millions now.
And he probably should have taken him because in real life, like he got into financial trouble because like that land he got, he'd mortgaged it to start a charitable organization, and eventually the depression happens, and there's something happened in the 20s that affects his farming, his ability to farm for his own.
The price of wheat drops.
Yeah,
the bottom falls out of it. I think.
But there's that and a couple other things, and then he gets back on his feet and then the depression happened. Like so. But he was doing all these sort of charitable works, trying to get education for kids and orphans and all that. And because to get the funding for that, that's when he started to get politically involved. And so naturally, when you get politically involved, people start trying to smear you if they oppose you. So they started saying, "Well, where'd all your money go, York, or whatever?" Like making that he would, tried to raise financial allegations against him. But it was all his own personal stuff. He was mortgaging and whatever. Like, he wasn't taking money from other people, so they couldn't get him on anything. They couldn't do anything wrong. Eventually, one of the tenant societies from another state actually helped him out, and he bailed out his farmland for him.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really like it's been a long time since I like read in depth about him as a person. I did it when I was young and got into the movie. Now I just watch the movie. You know what I mean? But I want to order his autobiography. I've never read it, so I'm going to order it. And but my understanding, it's mostly the diary. He only wrote the diary during his military time. So that's probably why the movie, which is based on that book, is mostly about the military circumstances leading into it. Because there's nothing. I'd probably have to get an external biography to get more detailed events of what happened afterwards. The news articles or whatever that read.
Yeah. Yeah, they say they walked into World War I and rode out on trucks. So that's how fast the technology jumped.
And he was one of the ones who warned that World War II was coming, that we weren't dealing with it. That was the thing with World War II, where it could have been avoided if more sane decisions had been made by. Like, no one listened to the Americans who were like, "Don't do this to Germany after World War One with the punitive economics and all that," because they let the socialists take power, And York was one of the ones saying, "We better start this sooner rather than later." Even Roosevelt, all I criticize Roosevelt about certain things. Even he was like that. We should have got this sooner rather than later. There would have been less life lost.
So this is the land that he was showing her before, and then she's like, "I got a surprise for you. Don't look up." And then how he didn't see this just coming up to the bridge though is beyond me. I mean, you can't hide that. So, but
I guess from the movie perspective, he would have been humble enough to not think it's his.
Yeah, right.
It's like, it's all yours. It's all ours. It's got an indoor pump.
Yeah, for the kitchen.
By the way, that does look like more of a modern house than for the time.
I don't know, 1916. That's about right.
Yeah, you could build a house like that in 1916.
Yeah,
it would have been considered higher end, but yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's a modern, like, brand new kind of house for then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's nothing about that's modern architecture. It's what do they call them? I gotta watch This Old House. I used to know all that stuff. Like, This Old House told me what old style of houses were, like Dutch colonial and all that sort of stuff. But I haven't watched it in years. I mean, I still watch it, but I haven't watched the old This Old House in years. We used to talk about that stuff. Anyway, it's a great movie. It's like it's so well paced. Like, the slow parts, you want to be in them. You know what I mean? And you follow his story through the movie so well. Like, part of that's Gary Cooper again. There aren't a lot of actors that Gary Cooper, John Wayne, Richard Chamberlain, Toshiro Mifune, maybe Gregory Peck, maybe Errol Flynn is another guy. Had that sort of charisma of presence that you with their acting, where you want to see what they're doing. You know what I mean? How they're and they know how to act. They're playing each little thing off so well. Even like when he gets when his mom throws the bucket of water on him, the facial expressions and all that. You know what I mean? Like every little thing, it's such a perfect movie. I'm not sure I can name more than 6 or 7. I would call it 10 out of 10. Right? I don't even consider the Godfather is a 9.9, like 7 out of 10 to me. this movie is one of the few 10 out of 10 movies that exist.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good movie. Um, that covers the story pretty well, about how it happened and everything.
Yeah, even with the embellishments,
Yeah.
they make it work for the movie, so you forgive them because they're using it to truncate a story, or
Mhm.
like a good way to do an adaptation of a guy's life in a book and all that. Not a
Right.
horrible way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I recommend anybody that hasn't seen the movie to see it.
Yeah,
Same with
definitely.
everything that all these older movies that Jacob has that we review on his channel. They're all a good view, and you look back and you see these kind of movies and you see how good they are, and then you see like the substandard stuff they're putting out these days.
Well, if you
Yeah.
go back like year by year, let's say, like just look up a list of the best movies of every decade, right? And don't look at the top 5, look at the top 50, let's say. I think by the time you get to, let's say, 2006 or so, you're not going to find a very objective list of who's going to consider the top 50. Like if I name the best movie of the 21st century, it's an obscure horror film, which most people aren't going to put on their list. You know what I mean? But if I name the best films of the 20th century, most people are going to agree with those films. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a level of quality and depth of quality with your top 50 every year that seem to fall off after 2002, 2003. Used to every year you get like 15, 20, 30, 40 films that were really good, even if they're lower, like small house films or whatever. Now you get 3 good movies a year, maybe if you're lucky, you know?
Right.
And the lower tier stuff where you get some of those low budget gems like that, you know, um, don't exist anymore. Like there's just garbage down there now. It's like it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Just, I mean, I, I can't think of the last movie like this. I guess the closest to it is the when we've said the Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, of this type of character, yeah. I mean, there aren't a lot of films with this type of character, you know. But yeah, it's a rare type of story
No.
too.
Yeah, it is. Another good World War II movie. I think it came out around the same time as World War One movie. It came out around the same time as Band of Brothers. It's what was it? The Lost Battalion.
Oh,
Oh,
it had
Good movie.
yeah, it had Ricky Schroeder in it as their
Yeah,
as their colonel.
the guy that
Yeah.
played Mute.
I don't remember that one.
Yep, that's a good one
That's it's a pretty good one.
for a TV movie. Is pretty good.
Yeah, it was like a TV movie. Yep. And
Yeah,
that's
what
also
was
based on a
Yeah,
real thing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's just the time you don't see many World War One movies,
Well, a couple of
but
years ago there was what 1917. The movie
yeah,
was
Yes.
that was
called.
pretty
Yeah.
good.
That was it
Yeah.
was all right.
There's one part in the middle that was a little stupid. If they took that out, it'd be a really good movie. It was a
I
good movie,
agree.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
there was another World War II film, World War One movie. Let me just type it. World War One movies. Came in the last 5 or 6 years. World War One movies made in the 21st century. Uh, no, Dunkirk is World War II.
Yeah, there was a really good series on the military channel about World War One. That was pretty good. And there's another one that Peter Jackson did, but it was all old World War One footage that he colorized and digitally enhanced.
The
I haven't seen
the,
that one.
the latest Kingsman movie was kind of a World War One movie.
Yeah.
Well, that was better than the second
So
Kingsman
was
movie.
Oh, that second Kingsman was garbage. The first one was pretty good.
Okay, so I found the Wikipedia list of World War One films. Uh, I don't consider Tolkien, which is like I guess, an unauthorized biography film about
It,
Tolkien.
I mean, it has some World War One stuff in it, but it's not a specifically dedicated. I mean, took part in it.
You know, it was not a good movie either. But I don't consider World War One, even though they have it on the list, I guess. Okay, I seen The War Below. That was 2021.
That's World War One.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember liking it, but not thinking it's a great movie.
Yeah, the Peter Jackson one is They Shall Not Grow Old. Just an interesting.
That's like a documentary.
Yeah, right. But it's really, really neat. Old photographs and video that they colorized and pretty cool.
That's right. This list of World War One films on Wikipedia has from all nations. Turkey has done a lot of World War One films.
Yeah.
Oh, they made a movie. Well, the greatest war song of all time is about World War One. It's Iron Maiden's Passchendaele. And apparently they made a movie about the Battle of Passchendaele as well.
Cool.
There are a lot more. I guess World War Two, just because of its nature, has way more. You know,
Right.
Mhm. Right.
there's a. I don't know. I haven't watched this in years, but there are a bunch of young Indiana Jones Chronicles episodes in World War One.
Right. Yeah, they're set in World War One. Like his sidekick is like Belgian or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we should rewatch that series one of these years. Australia did a TV show about Gallipoli.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they had a
Like,
big
yeah.
part in that. Them in New Zealand.
Yeah. Oh, they have a separate science fiction and fantasy list about World War One movies. Yeah. I remember the Doctor Who episode with the Brigadier and the Christmas truce.
Mhm.
Twice Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that episode. I remember that. And there's a horror movie. I like this movie. It's called Death Watch. It's a horror film movie about British and German soldiers encountering a demonic being in the war.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like, German Nazi or not Nazi, but German zombie soldiers. It's World War II
No,
where you get the
basically,
zombie.
the deaths of the war and the horrors of it sort of feed this demonic being. It's a
Ah.
really dark horror movie. Like it's the only thing the impression is like an old school Eastern European vampire type of thing.
Mhm.
You know the war. You know. Then you had that Doctor Who. I remember the War Games. Yeah, the Doctor and the Patrick Troughton Doctor Who War Games winds up in World War One. Yeah, we watched that. Old stuff is so much better than new stuff. It's sad.
Yeah. It is. Well, guys, That was good. Good movie to talk about. Good. I think that's
Yeah, it is.
that's my
I
second World War One movie. So we did The Light Horseman not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. So anybody you got anything to plug, Shieldwall?
No, I will not. Roman's not doing a show this week, and I will be out of town anyway.
Yeah.
So X-Files next week, I guess, for this show.
So,
Yep. That's
just one
all I got
addendum
too.
for the show. The book this is based on is called Sergeant York: His Life, Legend, and Legacy: The Remarkable Untold Story of Sergeant Alvin C. York.
Yeah, put that in the chat.
Actually, no, wait, no, sorry. Is that the book or is that a reissue? Let me make sure I'm getting the right one. Because that's not, unless that's a re-edit of it. I want to make sure I get the title of it right. Trying to find. Why can't I find the name of the book? No, okay. So here, Sergeant York, His Own Life Story and War Diary by Tom Scale. The second book is what happens after him, after the war. In other words, it includes stuff after the war. So the first book, the one based on his diary, is Sergeant York, His Own Life Story and War Diary. That's what this movie is based on. And that's by Tom Scale and Alvin York.
Okay.
The second book is written many decades later, and I want to read both of them now because all I know about him having after is I've read a news article, so this may have a more complete version of it. So.
Cool. Well, Matt, what do you got coming up?
My Shogun episode 9 review posted yesterday. Probably tonight before I go to bed, I'll record the episode 10 review. It ended well. I'll say that much for it. I'll have. I watched the 1950s Horatio Hornblower movie with Gregory Peck. I might do a review on that before I do the series. And I'll probably have a review of another shark movie out sometime this weekend since Shogun's off the plate. So that's what else. My Friday show I have coming up. Friday Pandemonium. No Roman this week. Jacob, did you drop your next calendar yet? Jacob?
I'll be getting that out tomorrow. No. Yeah, I'll be getting that out tomorrow. So get the new schedule out. And so
Calmander Matt has nothing else to self-promote other than the glory of cows.
Yeah.
Watch out for those cows. They're deadly in combat.
I give this movie 5 boos.
Yeah.
Holy! The time I had 10 seconds. My head's getting warmer already. This is like a winter hat. I'm going to keep this.
Yeah, well, it's like
you'll see me in
literally made out of fur or something. Yeah.
So next week is the X-Files, and going to be going over the first 2, the pilot and the episode 2. So so if you know anybody out there that likes old movies and might like to come subscribe to this channel and share the stream out, be sure to hit a like, and we'll see y'all next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah, have a good one, everybody.
Bye.